Hey everybody, it's Ricky with RocketCon here, and I am talking with Tony Pence, who you may know from used to be or still is. Is Deep Sleep still a thing? I don't know if that's still a thing.
Well, Deep Sleep never broke up. We stopped playing because Nick, our guitar player, moved to California.
All right, all
He's
right.
still out there, and oh, is it a little? You got a puppy behind you there?
Yeah, there'll be dogs moving in and out of this. It's
Nice,
raining
nice,
outside,
nice.
so they're a little scared of the storm. The
Love
the
it.
the biggest
Yeah.
baby's at my feet shaking right now.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, Nick moved to LA. We did a tour of Europe, and right after we got back, Nick moved to LA, and Derek kind of got absorbed into Nightbirds for the next
Okay.
ensuing years. It looks like they just played their last show, but he had been in Nightbirds for a while. And Mike Stearns was living in, I believe he's in Gettysburg, PA. So we're kind of scattered about, and we haven't played or practiced in quite some time. But I would hazard a guess to say that we're never actually broken up. If somebody was like, "Hey, play a show and put us all in the same room," we would probably do it.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, it's just been inactive, I guess, for a number
Perfect. I
of
mean, that's how bands should be, right? But I actually met you a different way, and one of the things I like to throw out there is, do you remember how we met? And it's
I do
okay if you
not.
don't.
You're gonna yeah,
Okay.
throw it at me,
I
please.
do. I do. I was in a band touring, and we were playing Charm City Art Space, and my friend Ryan Zavishlock said, "You got to check out this record store," and he took us into Celebrated Summer, and you had a skip loader 7 inch.
Skip loader, yeah.
And we had a conversation about just obscure mainstream, like that kind of when that rush on indie rock on alternative bands was going on, those bands that just kind of the discount bin bands that never made it. And
Yeah, for sure. It's some of my favorite stuff. Me and Nick Vance from Deep Sleep and Alex from Grave Mistake, Richmond, and
Mhm.
some other friends. We were very fond of those bands. And yeah, we just basically refer to them as like, it was basically like dollar bin dropout bands. Like they signed to a major label. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
great, good bands, signed to a major label, and then were basically dumped before the record ever officially came out. So you would see promo CDs in the dollar bin, $1
yeah,
promo CDs everywhere, but never like an actual legitimate release. Or if there was a legitimate release, it was, it just didn't
very,
really
yeah,
didn't really catch on or whatever. But some incredible bands, and yes, Skip Loader, that record Can Through String, I probably
yeah.
have it back here somewhere on vinyl, which one of the rare ones that actually is on vinyl. Um, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? That one actually got pressed.
It's white vinyl, right? If I
White,
remember
it
correctly.
is white
Yeah,
vinyl. I think there's
I've got
just
that in my record collection's down 2 stories down from here. So
got it.
but so we met it's been that I haven't been in a band in a long time, so I don't remember how long ago it was, but then we became internet acquaintances, and I have, just been following you, and I've been started doing this. And I was like, hey, I reached out, and you said you'd do this, and I'm excited. So,
Yeah, of
uh,
course, of course. Always glad to chat about Skip Loader.
yeah,
The
yeah,
all the all Skip Loader podcast, wherever those guys are, they can be excited to know that some people still remember their
you
excellent
know,
record. And,
Scotty Sandwich, I think is what he goes by. Did Death to False Hope fest in Durham.
yeah, I do not, or at least not off the top of my head.
That's all right. It's a big world and a small world at the same time, right? He actually met up with Tom Akerman a little
Oh,
while ago
wow,
and said he Tom might be doing more music in the future, and I was like,
that'd
ah,
be
because
that'd be
I don't know if you're familiar. I mean, he drummed for Sunday's Best.
Yeah, I remember all those Sunday's Best records but it's funny, like probably more people remember Sunday's Best
Yes.
than Skip Loader, but I think of Sunday's Best as like, oh, it's the continuation.
Yeah,
It's like,
well, he also had another band in there, Neighborly. I don't know if you've ever heard
oh
them.
yeah, of course, I
Yeah.
remember Neighborly as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So
So Tom, yeah, Scotty had I think it was on a podcast with him or something along those lines. I don't remember. I'll have to follow up with him. But I thought you would appreciate that. He is still out there floating around.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, again, that record is just really, really good. You know,
It
it's such an incredible record. And I don't know if it's on Spotify. Some of those, a lot of those records, like, you know, in addition to Skip Loader, there's like that band Horse, like
Mhm.
HOARSE. They have a record called Happens Twice, which was another one of our favorite of those that just like, you know, and I feel like a lot of these records are probably not on streaming or something. Maybe you
I
know,
know from Can Through String just got on streaming like a year and a half ago because I
oh, that's
geeked
cool.
out when that was on there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And honestly, it's funny you say that because I think there's a lot of people that are get frustrated by Spotify. There's the war on Spotify,
Sure.
and to me, it's changed the way it's like the radio's back again. When before Clear Channel and took over, it's introduced me to so many bands that then I can go out and buy their stuff. And
Yeah, I feel bad for bands that seem like Spotify's really a negative and they're getting paid, you know,
yeah,
pennies on the penny,
yeah,
basically, you know, like nothing. That does suck,
it does.
but I do think bands are easily discoverable. It is a way to easily discoverable, you know, to
It
easily
is.
discover bands, and it might not necessarily monetize for them in streaming plays, but maybe somebody would go see the band live, somebody would buy a shirt, somebody would, you know, at least, you know, something might occur there, I
Well,
guess.
that's funny that you say that because we are going to do later on our top 10 bands what we most regret seeing live, or
Most
our
regrets
top
alive,
10.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And alternatively, you said that, and I just saw the Beths in Nashville. I was there for a job that I just quit actually, and I got to see the Beths, who one of my friends mentioned to him and checked him out on Spotify. Um, and For me, it's been great because it's opened me up to a lot of new bands that I wouldn't have found. So I get to go see them, and to your point, goes to check out so many new live bands I would have never seen if it
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
for
awesome.
that way to access it. So um, tell us a little bit about your day job.
Yeah, so I own a record store, which is Celebrated Summer Records in Baltimore, Maryland. And yeah, I've had the store for 17 years now, so a pretty long time. It's been in a couple of different locations, but it's been in the spot that it is now, which is in Hamden, which is a kind of neighborhood in Baltimore. It's been there for about 11 years in the same spot. So yeah, and it's like kind of like a medium-sized record store. There's lots of punk and hardcore, but also lots of jazz and soul and classic rock. And I'll stock, you know, brand new releases from like new punk and hardcore bands, and also Lizzo and Taylor Swift, like right next to each other. So it's kind of like a medium-sized store that there's a little bit of something there for maybe everybody. So
And have experience, right, in a punk band. Do you one of the things I just because of your job now and in your experience, one of the things uh I've always found funny is there's this idea that musicians only listen to the kind of music they play. And
yeah, 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 sure.
and one of the things I found just very fascinating in talking to you and seeing you is just the wide scope of what you listen to. And so, what's been some of your favorite things you found coming through the door in your store?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, just to touch on like listening to different things, it's, you know, two parts of my brain, right? Like there's, I mean, the bands that I'm in, part of the reason, I mean, the bands that I've been in all might kind of sound like they sound a little different than each other, right? Like
Right.
Deep Sleep doesn't sound like War Games, and War Games doesn't sound like Never Enough or Daybreak. But the thing is that all of it is just fast hardcore. You know what I mean? Like there's no deviation there. I didn't do a screamo band. I didn't do a beatdown band. I didn't do, you know, a math rock band. Everything that you know, all the bands that I've been in have like basically an incredibly narrow focus, which is just fast hardcore. That's just like all it is. Um, and that's on purpose. One, because it's all I'm suited to do. Like
I understand.
I'm not I'm not suited to sing in a pop punk band
Yeah.
and to carry a tune or hit a note. I'm not suited to be in a math rock band. I'm just not suited to that at all. And incidentally, I don't even really like math rock or screamo or metal hardcore. Those are things I don't really like. But the other part of it is the store part of my brain, or the part of my brain that likes music that is not necessarily related to the music that I've chosen to play. And in that world, right, like tons of pop punk, tons of indie rock, tons of jazz, free jazz, spiritual jazz. I've made the joke a lot of times. It's like I'm not very fond of avant-garde music when it is played by white guys with guitars. Like I'm not a Zappa guy.
Yeah.
I don't like experimental guitar based music very much, with very, very, very few exceptions. But for whatever reason, the part of my brain that is amenable to avant-garde music is like, oh, when it's jazz, it's like it can't be crazy enough. You know what I mean? When it's like somebody holding a guitar, I basically would prefer that it sound like the Ramones or Napalm Death, and not anything too like experimental. But when it's jazz, there's like no limits. I'm like, the crazier it sounds, the better I enjoy it. So again, just different parts of my brain,
Yeah.
like, enjoying different styles of music and different things. But
I actually like it's funny. When it comes to jazz, I cannot sit down. Like going and seeing a live jazz band is incredible, right? Just the incredible musicianship and the talent. But I cannot focus on an album. I get like I just like to me I get lost. Like I can't pay attention. 'Cause, I get really focused on lyrics is one of my big things, right? And a lot of jazz is about the improvisation and the ability to hit the wrong note correctly, right? So
100% not for everybody.
yeah, but seeing it live, on the other hand, I walk in and I'm just like, wow, like you can really appreciate. I don't even know how you're making this happen. Like I could never do that.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what's probably your weirdest jazz record? Like what's
Well, I don't know about, necessarily weird, but I should say, I mean, just like with punk and hardcore, right? Like, you don't want to dive right in listening to Napalm Death, maybe, right? Like that
right?
would be too much. You want to start somewhere, like start at the Ramones or the Stooges or something, and then work your way to, maybe a different style, or like a more intense, or like, style as you go along. Like I probably started listening to jazz around 1995 or something, and I heard an avant-garde jazz record, and I was like, nope, 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 not for me, not
Yeah.
ready, no chance whatsoever. I was like, I like jazz, but I'm gonna stay over here in the little kiddie pool with like completely just normal. Yeah, normal is probably not the right word, but like just regular jazz. I listened to Horace Silver and like Art Blakey. I like drummer fronted jazz, and stuff like that. And then after years of listening to that and like kind of falling into it, then I was slowly like, oh, I'll get into more improvisational or avant-garde, style of jazz. And now there's no limits, but again, just falling right in. If somebody hadn't heard punk or hardcore and the first thing you played for them was like, Melt Banana or something, they might just be, whoa,
Definitely.
like I'm not ready for this. You got to start me somewhere else.
I
So I started, at one point, and then just slowly, got more interesting, interested as it went on, I guess.
I think that's a challenge that a lot of hobbyists fall into with anything, right?
Yeah.
Is once you fall into that rabbit hole, you get really excited about the weird things, but you forget about the steps it took you to get there. The stuff that
Yeah.
none of us start. Like we all started, mine was Bad Religion. That was the first band that I heard that took me off the radio and into that punk rabbit
Yeah,
hole.
which is amazing. Bad Religion are an incredible band. I saw
Yeah.
them. I had, one of, not first punk show, but like, but I saw them play with. They did 2 nights at the 930 Club. The first night was all opened who are my favorite band, and then Bad Religion headlined, and then the next night Bad Religion opened and all headlined, and I guess
That's awesome.
that was on the Generator tour, and I just remember being like, just I was there to see all, but like Bad Religion just like killed it. They were incredible, and it was like a 60-song set list or something. It was like four pieces of paper taped together, playing all those early to mid
That
periods.
is that had to be an incredible night. Oh my God. I don't know if you were at the show when I'm a big Jawbox fan, and when they got back together, they did their reunion show. And when you said that, it just made me think of when I was seeing them also at 9:30, the new 9:30.
Yep.
They played for almost, it felt like almost 3 hours, and it was,
Oh yeah.
and I couldn't believe it because I was just like, oh, they're not going to play these songs because they've been going. Bands, especially like, you know, hardcore and punk bands don't play for hours, and
Sure.
then they just kept going. And it most bands for me, once it hits an hour, I start to, all right, I've seen you. We've burned through it, and
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough. They were on fire that night.
Yeah.
It was one of the best shows I've ever seen, and they played almost their entire catalog, which there's not a lot. Like I saw Alkaline Trio when they did that Past Lives tour, and there were some of those songs. So I was like, yeah, I know why you don't play this live. I don't need to see this.
It's
Oh,
interesting though when you see these bands doing like these reunion tours and stuff. I mean, if it's a band that either I never was able to see originally, or I saw them originally and I'm relatively sure they're not going to disappoint
yeah,
me now. I'm excited to see those shows, and I like when they play, you know 25 plus songs, or
me too.
better. um
It's for well, in some of these bands, like I went to Riot Fest to see Jawbreaker, knowing they were probably going to do tours,
mhm.
but there was a part of me that was like, if they don't,
Right, just in case they
just
don't.
in case, I gotta go. I gotta go see
Definitely.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
went to the when Jawbreaker played at the Anthem in DC.
I was at that show as
Um,
well.
I went to that one, and yeah, weirdly, I went and saw them. I tried to see them in Baltimore on the Jawbreaker tour. They played in Baltimore at a place called the Rev, but they didn't play. Blake's throat was hurting, so only Jawbox played that night, and then I wound up not seeing them again until they played on the Dear You tour. They played at the Black Cat on that tour, and I saw them. But then not all the way until I didn't go to any of those Riot Fest shows or anything, but they played at the Anthem
Yeah,
one of the tours that they were doing, and I was like, I
yeah.
definitely need to see them again. Like I love these songs. I really, really want to check them out. So, and it was great. It didn't disappoint me at all. So,
I, for me, too, people get upset about the reunion tours, but for me, it's just there. Like you said, there's a lot of these bands. Hey, you didn't get a chance to see some of these bands didn't really get to tour, or if they did tour, it was once or twice, and then
yeah.
they broke up. And now this is a chance where, hey, they've got an audience. We can actually go see these bands. And
Yeah. I will say I don't love, just as a person that has some amount of social anxiety, even pre-COVID social anxiety. Um, I do not love bands can do whatever they want, of course.
yeah,
Like I don't care. I'm not judging them for playing fests, but I don't like the fest situation. Like I don't.
yeah,
Well, you know what? Actually, I'll change it. The Fest in
this
Florida
is
is pretty
fantastic.
chill, and Maryland Death Fest, which happens here in Baltimore,
Yeah,
is also pretty fun. But the Riot Fest or like these larger festivals,
I'm with you.
bands, more power to them to do what they want. But I always kind of hold out and wait until they'll play like more of a medium sized venue, and it's
Yeah,
not like
I
8 bottles of water and having to sit through 22 bands that I might not want to see.
and you can't
Uh,
leave. No
so,
reentry. You're stuck there. I Riot Fest is something I did once. I would never do again.
yeah,
But I got to see Wu-Tang Clan and Prophets of Rage and
incredible. Yeah,
yeah, and Built to Spill and
I did it
Ministry, Nine Inch
I
Nails.
did do it one year, but I remember it not being so crazy. The year that I went, we saw J Retard play, and we saw All play, which was probably the reason that I went.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it was inside. It wasn't like I think it was before they had done the huge, large outside
Oh,
version.
yeah, at the park.
Yeah, so I believe it was inside, if my memory serves. So I did go to that one, But yeah, even when I was a kid, I went to the first two Lollapaloozas, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
like even then, I felt somewhat uncomfortable in that amount of people. So I don't love that, but most of the times, right, like these bands like Descendants or Jawbreaker, you can kind of almost assume that they will eventually do a more median-sized
Yeah.
show or tour. My biggest problem though lately has been Devo, who don't really do those types of things. They do play those fests, but then you don't really see them do, like a multi-city tour where it's smaller, and it's kind of a little frustrating because I've never seen Devo and I really want to. So I'm kind of like, oh God, is there going to be a fest that I'm going to have to go to see them? But
I
well,
that there's two of those that I never did for kind of the same reason. They toured all the time, so I thought it was safe. Was the Buzzcocks,
yeah.
and of course I'll never get the chance to see them. And then Sonic Youth, and I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah,
sure I'm
yeah.
never gonna get the chance to see them either now.
I think Sonic Youth are. I mean, the Buzzcocks play without the
Yeah,
Buzzcocks played shows post uh you know um
Shelly.
him passing away.
Yeah,
But Sonic Youth are probably, you know what I mean? I
I would
feel
be
like that might
shocked if
that
they
might for
ever played it.
sure be a foregone conclusion that they're done. I
Yeah,
saw I
uh,
saw Sonic Youth I saw Sonic Youth with the Beastie Boys in like maybe it was like the Check Your Head
how
tour
was that?
or whatever. I mean, incredible. it was awesome. That was like,
How
and I
could it
think
not be?
yeah, I want to say that like either Rage Against the Machine or Cypress Hill played too. It was pretty wild. But yeah, that was I saw them then, and I saw the Buzzcocks. I didn't see them, even remotely early, but they played in Baltimore. They played at the Auto Bar, and they played at Soundstage within a couple of years of each other. And I went to both of those shows, and I caught them that time. But yeah, there's plenty of bands that I'll never get to see, or yeah, it's just I guess that's what makes, music special. It's
It
fleeting
is.
sometimes, or the experience of seeing it live is sometimes fleeting.
I my wife was not a big concert person for a lot of our relations. She would go, and actually she loves REM, so I got to see when REM toured with Modest Mouse
Oh
and
wow.
the National, and Johnny Marr was in Modest Mouse at that point. So I got to see
Right. I
Johnny
remember
Marr.
hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah, he played with REM, and to me, that was just something like, wow, what a cool moment. Like I mean, uh, well, where else am I ever going to get to see Johnny Marr play with REM?
Yeah.
But she's since really come around, and it's been exciting to see her just kind of fall in love with it and get to see
Oh, that's awesome.
some of her
Yeah.
favorite bands live too,
Yeah.
because it is completely different, right? So what's been some of your like, you've been to a lot of shows, obviously. I think when we get in into the scene, that's a side
I don't
effect
want.
of it,
I
right?
feel bad. I don't want to just be here being like, "Oh yeah, I love it." Like
No,
the time that I saw REM in 1989 on the
no,
again.
I love it. For me, this is, to me, it's fascinating. Just like hearing the stories, even if I couldn't be there, hearing people be excited about it and just imagining. I mean, I watch concert videos, right?
Yeah.
That's like, God, I wish I could have been there.
Well, I haven't. The thing is like because of the record store, I have to be careful about COVID.
Yeah,
I can't just be like, "Oh, that shit's over." You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like because if I get sick and the store has to close down, that's me. Like it's
yeah,
not like my friends sometimes will be like, "Oh yeah, I got COVID. I felt bad for 2 days, and I fucking read comic books for the rest of
yeah,
the week, paid." And I'm
yeah.
like, that's awesome, but not my experience at all. I
No,
if
yeah,
I get COVID and I'm out for fucking, let's just pretend that I'm out for 7 days and I'm 50 and I hurt every single day that I wake up, no COVID. You know what I mean? Just pretend that I'm only out for 7 days. I'm definitely in bleeding money
yeah,
time period. And so then I have to look at going to shows now and say, sure, I would pay $20 or $50 to go to that show. Would I pay $5,000 in lost
yeah,
revenue to go to that show if I
yeah.
happen to get sick? So talking about old shows is kind of fun because I do go a little bit. I'll go here and there to some shows, now, but I'm still kind of like hoping things even get better, and to like fully go back to like the way that I was going to shows like every week or something. So it's nice to talk about older shows because I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good time when I got to go to more. And I don't feel like being 50, I don't feel retired from wanting to do it. I want to see
Yeah,
like new hardcore bands play shitty houses. Like
yeah.
that's something that like that will never be beaten out of me. I want to do it. It's just been difficult too now, that's all. So
I mean, I think I went to a house show post like in the
Mhm.
COVID era, but maybe one. That's something,
Yeah.
and I'm, you know, in the middle age category as well. So,
Right.
it's weird because if you feel like you're the old guy in the room, but that's the way you got to go see the young bands. But the landscape of just being an artist in this time period has changed drastically. I mean, the
Yeah.
small venues, as a small business owner, right, you're encountering that too.
Yeah.
The crunch that's on these businesses. I feel like a lot of those smaller places just didn't survive, and so I'm
Yeah.
glad you did.
Yeah. No, it was fine. I mean, as people might have said or read, like hobbies that are more like inward facing really had a pretty incredible growth spurt
Yeah,
during COVID. People were like, oh, well, I'm not going out and drinking. Currently, this is when
yeah,
things were like more
yeah.
shut down. They're like, I'm not going to go out and drink, and there's no live music for X amount of time. So, oh, let me look at this record collection. And either I'm going to sell some of my record collection, which benefited me and used record stores, or hey, I'm going to actually start caring about my records collection again, or I'm going to just decide that I need a new hobby and collecting records is like the fun thing to do. And, of course, I don't want COVID to have happened, but like my particular sector of like bookstore, record store,
Yeah,
comic book store really saw an incredible amount of growth
it did.
due to people wanting to participate in hobbies that they could just basically do sing, just as themselves. Like they can sit home and, listen to records and
That's
or read books or whatever.
I worked for a used bookstore chain for the last 6 years. That's the job I
Okay.
recently stepped away from. And
Did you see
you're
the same
absolutely.
thing? Did you see that same like
Oh yeah, it
increase?
went out of control, like
Yeah.
out of control. It was actually a little terrifying, if I can be honest, because I had to go into Florida and Newport News, Virginia, and Fayetteville, North Carolina, and they were acting like this wasn't a thing.
Oh
and
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I was just like, this is terrifying. This is
Yeah.
pre-vaccine. My world never stopped. I had to keep
Right.
going traveling, and it's probably part of the reason why I'm not working right now. So I just had
Sure.
to go like,
Take a
woo,
break
that
from
was
that.
a
Yeah.
yeah, that was a terrifying 3 years, and I
Yeah.
mean, it still is. It feels like we're starting to get kind of at least a new normal, I guess is the phrase people have been using. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Just I'm into board gaming, and board gaming exploded.
Yeah, of course. Like a husband and wife or
Yep,
roommates, you know
yep.
what I mean, or whomever
Your
can
pot,
just like
your
can
pot,
just
yeah,
like play board games.
yeah.
Me and my wife bought a bunch of board games.
Oh, what did you get?
We actually got some. You know what? We got this. The Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Yeah, yeah,
They made
yeah.
two
Yep.
I guess card
House
game
of the House of
games.
Danger and something else, right?
Yeah, House of Danger is our favorite, and
Yeah,
we really, really loved House of Danger. It was like really fun. So
excellent,
yeah, that and backgammon and Scrabble and
excellent,
such.
excellent.
But,
That's yeah, that's kind of my one of my big hobbies is board gaming. That's kind of where I started, and that's kind of the crux of my zining here. My video zining is board gaming and music, because those
oh,
are
that's awesome. Yeah.
two of my biggest passions. So, um, that's all. Ironically enough, am playing House of Danger with my wife right now. So,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Fun.
So
You can basically, I mean, you can't play it endlessly, but
yeah,
you can play it, forget about it for a month or two,
yeah,
and play it again, and it's still pretty fun. I mean, maybe post the third time playing it, you're like, okay, I know everywhere to go and not to go, but
yeah.
like, you can get a solid two really solid plays out of that game, I think. before you have to like, move on to something else.
And then you can pass it. It's like a good book, right? Once you've gotten everything you want out of it, you get to give it on to somebody else, and they
Yeah,
can,
for sure.
um and that's one of the things I actually, because don't you have a comic book store next to your store? Or is there?
Yeah, directly next to us
Yeah.
is Atomic Books, and they're not exactly. I mean, they sell comics, but they're kind of like it's like everything. It's like underground books. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little of everything, right? It's almost a little bit like Celebrated Summer. They have like a little bit of mainstream comics, a lot of like experimental underground kind of comics, lots of stuff in between. So, but not just comics, right? And they have like,
Yeah.
tons of novels and art books and things like that. It's a great store. John Waters gets his mail delivered there. He like fully endorses it, and sometimes he'll pick his mail up in person, on a random Sunday.
That's
Just
awesome.
like show up, and so that's great. And Atomic Books really helped me because I was initially in Towson, which is a suburb of Baltimore, and I was inside of a comic book store there as well. A different comic, like that was like a proper comic book store.
Okay.
Like Magic the Gathering
Yeah.
cards and just Spider-Man comic books. So when I started my store, I was in the back of that store for about 4 years. And when they eventually decided to move, I moved into the city inside of Atomic Books. They basically incubated me for about a year and a half until the space next to us became available. And that's how we are now, where, they're next to me and I'm right there. So it's a good destination, but I couldn't have done it without them. They really saved me.
That's one thing I feel like we lose a lot of in the big box store era, right? Is just the way we could help. It feels like everything's a competition these days, and even with retail, it doesn't have to be, right? We can help each other out. We can be
Oh, yeah.
cooperative. It can be a mutually beneficial environment. It doesn't have to be about grinding your
Yeah.
competitors to dust.
I mean, here's the thing: comic books and records are perfect because they are non-competing but
Yeah.
very compatible. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
You can
you
read
can
and listen at the same
roll
time.
the dice, literally, right, and
Yeah.
say that somebody that collects records might also have a predisposition to, read comic books or play a role-playing game
Yeah.
or be interested in literature that is a little left of center. And that was a gamble that I made when I initially, in the earlier comic book store, when I put myself inside of there, when I asked them like, hey, can I set my store up in this unused area of your store? I kind of made a gamble that the people that would come just to buy records would be kind of interested in comic books again, maybe. And so it worked out well, right? Their business grew a little bit because my customers were walking through their store and like, oh, I remember this comic. I remember this, and some of the comic people were like, oh, there's a record store in here now. I'll
Yeah.
check that out. I remember records. And so again, complementary without
Yeah.
being competitive. And it worked out great in both cases, so.
Well, I'm gonna pause this right here. We'll take a little break, and then we're gonna come back and do our regain our conversation. Then we'll do our top 10 most regrettable concerts. So
Right.
give us 1 second, and we'll be right back. This is why I struggle to keep the bed made. Kahlua. Kahlua. Lulu, you want to go outside? Kahlua. We're back, and we're gonna change it up a little bit because we want to be positive.
I felt this is me because I felt like I was being too negative. I felt like I was being too trolling and negative.
Yeah,
and,
that's all right. It's all right. You know what? You've seen a lot of great shows, and there's invariably going to be some stuff in there you didn't want to see because, like, that's the thing when you start going to shows too. I was talking to my friend Damien. He's in a band called Dead Format,
Mhm.
And we were talking about how there was just like Newfound Glory was a band that in the late 90s, early 2000s, you just saw because
Yeah,
they played with it didn't matter if you like Newfound Glory or not.
yeah.
You saw Newfound Glory
I
live.
saw them open up for Snapcase.
Yeah. I saw them. I think I've seen them like 7 or 8 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I'm
saw him open up
ambivalent
for
towards them.
Snapcase. Weirdly,
Yeah,
I saw Modest Mouse open up for Blackheart Procession once, but I wasn't there. So a lot of times, sometimes when I'm making this list of like bands I was unhappy to see, Modest Mouse is actually like it's in a world of like I'm there to see the band that I'm there to see, and I don't want to see another band. And yeah, it just so happened that Modest Mouse opened up for Blackheart Procession, who I like adore, and I was just like, I have no time for you, Modest Mouse. You know, whatever year it was, I was like, just you
yeah.
know, bring on Blackheart Procession. And you know, I could look backwards and be like, that was certainly a shitty attitude of me to have.
You
But
want this isn't going to be on either one of my lists, but one of the other things that's funny to me is sometimes just how these things happen because we went and saw Better Than Ezra. My sister and I went and saw Better Than Ezra at a concert in the park in Atlanta, and this woman walks out that's opening the show, and all these preteen girls are freaking out, and we are like, "What is happening?" And my sister's like, "Is that Nicole Kidman?" No, it was Avril Lavigne.
oh wow.
So I saw Avril Lavigne on her like one of her probably her first major tours opening for
Yeah,
Better Than Ezra. In what world would Avril Lavigne ever open for Better Than Ezra? But
yeah.
I got to see it, so what a memory!
I might be. I had well, not similar. That's quite a serious situation there. I
Yeah,
remember once going to see. I might have been Knapsack. I
great.
think it was very possibly Knapsack. I could be forgetting, but it was a band like Knapsack where it's like people liked them, but it was not selling out any shows. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It was just like
yeah.
this was in the 90s, and we were like, oh yeah, let's say Knapsack. I'm relatively sure it was. Somebody can spot check this online. But we get there and there's like 100 people outside of the place and it's completely sold out. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we can't even get in. And
Yeah.
the Dashboard Confessional was
Oh,
opening, you know, for them.
yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, well, hate you forever.
Yeah.
Knife in the heart forever for making me not see what I presume was Knapsack. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
I hope
But
you got to see him live at some point because Knapsack was great live. So
I think I saw them in Baltimore at some point.
okay.
Other than that, yeah. But
I got to see them a couple of times when they got back together,
oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
and Jealous Sound. Love like anything Blair does is great.
Shit, you know what? It might have actually been the Cella Sound.
That makes more sense.
I actually think it was. Thank you for saying that. I actually
Yeah,
believe it was the Jealous Sound and the Dashboard and we loved that Jealous Sound record, man. We fucking
yeah, it's one of the greatest albums of all time. I love
stellar record. Yeah, 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 for
the
sure. So
Fold Out is man, what a brutal song.
I think it was Jealous. I absolutely now I'm convinced it was the Jealous Sound and Dashboard was opening, and we
that
were like, what are all these fucking people doing here? I mean, I went home mad with the name Dashboard Confessional like carved onto a fucking knife. Like I cannot fucking believe, you know, like
yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah. I sometimes it's like the story of when Cars Flowers would open for Mustard Plug, and now it's Maroon Five. It's like, could
oh
you
right,
imagine seeing Adam Levine opening for Mustard Plug?
that is crazy. Yeah,
What
yeah,
a
for
world.
sure.
Well, do you want to start with? Do you want to like alternate?
Yeah, we'll alternate between shows we were glad to see or unhappy to see, and then
Yeah,
glad
and
to
then
see.
we can end on a positive note. So,
Yeah, sure. So we'll both do a one that we didn't want to
all
see.
right. So let's start. You want to start us off? What was
Yeah,
your?
sure. I'll start off at the bottom or the lower part of my list, which
Yeah.
is a band who just so happened to play like 8 shows in a row that I was trying to see, but never trying to see them, and that is Primus. This is in the late late 80s, you know, 89 to like, you know, 92 or 3 era. I am not a musician, and as I might have, you know, said before, when it comes to, you know, technical music,
Yeah.
I do not enjoy any of that. And I so like, Primus's music for fucking bass players and basically no
Yeah,
one
I'm a
else.
bass player.
Or
I love
or
them.
so you love them, right? Yeah. So
Dude,
it is music. It is literally music for bass players, and I'm
it,
not a bass player. And they
is.
open up these shows. I mean, I remember going to see Fishbone, who I loved.
Yeah,
Primus was opening. I
yeah.
remember seeing Public Enemy. Primus opened up that fucking show too, and I would just stand there, and it was just like, blip, 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 and I'm just like getting angrier and angrier, like so fucking mad.
The closest I've come
Remember
to
it.
seeing Public Enemy is Prophets of Rage, but I did get to
Oh
see
yeah, yeah,
FD. So hey, that was great.
that's incredible. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I saw
well,
that
that's
really weird tour. I should say that this should be on my list of shows I was glad to see, but there was a Lollapalooza knockoff tour that happened that was Gang of Four, Sisters of Mercy, Public Enemy, and I can't remember who else was on it. And it was short lived. It had a couple of city run and then it fell apart. But I saw that tour in DC. Um, and Public Enemy, yeah, Public Enemy played on that tour, and I was able to see it. But the show, I think it was Anthrax, Public Enemy, and Primus was the other show that Primus jumped.
I love all three of those bands.
Yeah.
So uh,
I was a big Anthrax fan. I was a huge metalhead, so
yeah,
time period.
Anthrax is my favorite of the big four of thrash.
Yeah.
I know it's an unpopular opinion, but
I love Anthrax. I love them.
Well, mine is actually a ska band that the probably formerly most beloved ska band of the third wave. But I was at one of those outdoor festivals that they like radio festivals in Charlotte, and I was going to see Run DMC was there and Super Drag was there, and I was excited about both of them.
That's incredible.
And then I ran into Dickie Barrett, who was also there, and he was a total jerk. And then the sound was atrocious. Like the bass was just like it was just way too loud, blown out bass, overriding everything. So my number 5 is seeing the Mighty Mighty Bosstones because it was just a terrible experience. And
he was a jerk, huh?
yeah, but the rest of the show was great. We
I mean, Super Drag, that's incredible. I mean, I love Super Drag and Run DMC. You're not going wrong there. So
yeah, it was that the show overall was memorable, but that moment was awful.
We can all feel better. He got kicked out, or the Money Money Bosstones broke up because he's like
he's an all-righter, right?
He's like a anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, that's disappointing, honestly. Yeah. For all the people who love them, some of my friends love them. But
I wasn't like, I mean, Mighty Mighty Bosstones, I always felt like, they had that one radio song on each record.
Yeah, impression that I get. Yeah,
maybe like a listenable, but he was in that earlier Boston hardcore band Impact Unit. And I mean, that Impact Unit 7 inches is fucking incredible. So it's a little bit of a shame that he went that way, but he wouldn't be the first, third, or 103rd old hardcore guy to turn into a weirdo alt-righter. So
no, it's unfortunately more common than I think we'd like to admit. So
yeah, I agree.
Well, all right. So
all right, Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Primus and Mighty Mighty Bosstones were solidly still in the 90s here.
Yeah. All right. So let's move forward. What's your number 5? I guess your.
Oh, well, so do you want me to do one that I enjoyed?
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah. So one that what I'm really glad that I got to see was the Ramones. I caught them it's weird. I could have seen them more times, but I didn't. I saw them twice. I guess this is partially by the time they were playing, when they played Lollapalooza, right? They did like a whole run of Lollapalooza dates. But by that point, I was fully not able to be in crowds that were that big, so I couldn't do that. But there was a heavy metal club in Baltimore called Hammerjacks, and it was like more properly heavy metal club. I saw like Merciful Fate there and more metal shows, but the Ramones had a long-standing tradition of playing there. And so I got to see them twice there. Both times were with CJ, not DD, but it was like CJ's first tour. So it was like maybe like 90, 91, somewhere right in there. And I remember, this is one of those things where it's like, you can see whatever shows you've ever seen. You can be as, quote unquote, cool, like, oh, I saw this or I saw
Yeah.
that. There is always, this is a lesson I learned super early. There is always somebody that is like 20 times cooler than you.
Yep.
It's all 20 cooler
Yeah.
shows than you
Yeah.
did, no matter fucking what.
Yeah.
And, I remember back then, my brother-in-law being like, Dee Dee's not in the band? Fuck that shit. Like, you're seeing nothing. That shit
Oh,
sucks. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And he was a nice guy, but there was a, every once in a while it'd be like, oh yeah, man, shit, I saw Slayer in 1988 on the South of Heaven tour, and he's like, I saw him in 86 on the fucking you know what I mean. He's
Yeah.
he's like fuck your bullshit Slayer
Yeah.
1988. He's just like, I saw him on the Hell Awaits tour,
Yeah.
so as we talk about these things that we've seen or whatever, it's good to always remember that
There's
you know what
always,
I mean? There's
yeah.
always, a
It,
ton of people in line that are like, whatever it is that I saw was just like straight bullshit. And
that's for me, when we take away that side of it and just like that's what's fun for me is I get to hear about those. And it's like, man, that had to be awesome. And then sometimes you hear about the replacement shows, and I was like, yeah, I saw them one of those nights when it wasn't so good. And it's like,
it wasn't good. Yeah.
oh, well, that makes me feel better. At least I didn't
Yeah.
get on there.
All I remember about that Ramones show, the two shows that I saw, they were both very early in CJ's time there. And they were, I mean, I remember they were so fast. When you listen to
Yeah.
that final live record, Loco Live, they're incredibly fast on that record, but they had actually slowed down some amount from when CJ first joined the band. I mean, those shows, I remember being like, oh, what song is this? And it was like 2 songs later. I was just like, they were just like blasting so fucking fast. So it was cool to have seen them, but it was almost like a total blur. Both shows
Yeah.
were just like a complete blur. So
Well, I am jealous. I never got to see the Ramones. This one is I saw this band. They were a Durham band. They never got really big. They did a couple albums. I think like we're on Tiny Engines for a little while. There's a band called Red Collar. And I got to see them and have since become friends with Jay. But it was for me, it was one of those bands when you see a local band, and in Durham there weren't a lot of great local bands. There were the big ones, right, that went on to your Archer's Aloaf and your Super Chunk and those, but in the scene. And for me, it was just cool to see such a great band that just existed in there and had such a good following and had such a good energy. And I think I've seen them I've toured with Jay solo. Like I've seen them probably 15, 20 times, who knows, but just finding a local band to fall in love with. And that was just I remember seeing them because their drummer had just broken his arm doing dumb things that bands do, like dumb prank things.
yeah,
But Jay,
rough, drummer with a broken arm.
Yeah. But they played and he just got, and he said the thing that was great was Jonathan couldn't speed up because he was recovering, and it made him the tightest they'd ever been. It was one of the first times I'd ever saw him. And I just remember that, just thinking about, man, there's probably a lot of punk bands that could take a lesson from that. It's just stay tight.
Slow and steady.
Yeah, the exact opposite of your Ramones.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and this is also exactly why I'm not a musician. I'm always, with any of my bands, I'm like, cool, that sounds great. Can we just play it faster and looser? Yeah. I'm like, just be fast. I'm like the exact opposite of that. I'm like, can you just play it 3 times faster, but with like slightly less accuracy?
It's more fun to play fast. It may not sound good, but it is more fun. Cool. All right. Well, let's go on. What's your number 4?
Oh yeah, right. Number 4 of the hated bands or
disasters
that I really didn't like. I'll keep this one in the 90s too. This band had the misfortune of opening up for my favorite band. So my favorite band being who are notoriously hated, or not say hated. They're just less appreciated, right, than the Descendants. But I really lean into that super hard, and I love them. And I had to see them, the Toadies, opened for
Oh
them.
no.
There was a tour where the Toadies opened for them at the old 930 Club, and I feel guilty about this. I feel bad. Like I legitimately feel bad. Like this is some ignorant shit, but I was so unhappy that the Toadies were opening for them that I was in the front row, of course. If there was no
Oh
row, I was
no, you're that guy.
Oh, I just straight up turned my back when they played, and I was like, 1 foot away from them. I feel so bad. I feel legitimately
Oh
bad about that
man.
one. But
I
also, so that's like 50-50, right? 50% I just hated seeing them because I was unhappy that they were there. And
sure.
50% I feel bad that I was kind of a trolling asshole. You know what I mean? That turned my back on them. So I feel a little bad about that one.
That's funny. Well, we're staying in the 90s, I guess, because but this was a band I've seen multiple times, and I actually really used to love this band. And they're on this list because when I saw them live this time, it was so bad that I do not listen to them anymore. I don't even go back and listen to the old stuff.
Oh
And
shit.
it,
They blew their spot completely up, huh?
yeah, and it could be Blink 182 here because I did used to love Blink 182, but I think I would have grown out of that anyway. This is Everclear. I
Ah,
saw them
Everclear, okay.
after everybody left, and it was just art with and it was and Everclear was there was some of those radio bands aged well, some of them didn't. I think Everclear's Sparkle and Fade is a great album. I think everything around it, whatever, but it was legitimately one of the worst shows from a band I loved, and I just
Yeah.
sat there and I went, like, you're better than this. Just stop playing music. This is
Yeah.
embarrassing.
They were actually like they were playing the songs incorrectly or just looked like they didn't want to be there.
Nobody wanted to be there.
Nobody
It
wanted
was like they were plotting. Like this was a band that when I saw them live, and they were in their prime. They were high energy. Art
Yeah.
came out of a punk scene, right? So he was a punk rock guy, like high energy, full tilt, like blasting through songs, just great showmanship. This time it was like the plotting songs, no energy. It was the definition of mailing it in. And I was like, you had to have made enough money off of royalties that you don't have to do this. Like, nobody's making you do this. And I don't buy into selling out really, but it felt like just such a sellout thing to do. Just sit there and you're just milking money out of people that are going for a nostalgia act. And it was heartbreaking to see.
Yeah.
I did used to love that band, and now I don't listen to them. So that is
I had a
it's
heart. I had a similar experience seeing a band that I love, or like really like anyway. Which is, excuse me, also 90s, of course, and in the same realm as that, which is the Gin Blossoms.
yeah.
I really love those first two Gin Blossoms records, and I went and saw them, and it looked like somebody was holding a gun to their head. Well, the band members looked like
Yeah.
somebody was holding a gun to their heads, and that they didn't want to be there. But then the singer was like he would just grab people would hold their cell phones up and he would sing into their cell phones like if they called their friend like I'm at the
Yeah.
Jim Blossoms concert and he would like pick up the cell phones and sing into them like while he was
Sure.
singing and I was like that is such a weird
Yeah.
flex for the Jim Blossoms. I don't know. He also was wearing these weird striped gloves and no one else looked like they wanted to be there and I was like Jesus Christ, this is just like
Everything
crushing,
about that
soul
band,
crushing.
when they kicked out Doug and he wrote
Yeah,
their best songs, and it's
right,
just like
yeah.
I get it. I've been in bands with people that like I see both sides of that story, but it's also like, man, he's the one that made you all your money. He wrote your best songs by
Yeah,
far.
yeah, yeah. They really cut him out, right?
Yeah, that breaks
Like
my heart.
that was like bad blood. I don't think I knew. I think I was just like, oh, I like these songs. I wasn't
He
like,
was he was an alcoholic, so they kicked him out of the band, and like that whole story is tragic. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
All those early songs are like drinking song, serious
yeah,
songs.
yeah, you can tell he was going through something. uh,
Right.
well, that's all right. Let's go on to something more positive.
Sure,
What's
more
your
positive. Is it me for a one I
yes,
was glad to see?
yeah, because I just did Everclear, so we're on to you.
Oh, right, right, right. Okay, yeah, so we're back to the good ones. What do I got here? Oh yeah, De La Soul.
Oh wow,
Yeah, I'm a huge De La Soul fan. Specifically the second LP, De La Soul is Dead, but I mean I like them all.
yeah,
I didn't see him on that tour, but I saw him on the Stakes is High tour. Um, incidentally at the exact same place that the Ramones played, that heavy metal club. I don't know what, they never did hip hop shows there.
Yeah.
So it just so randomly, Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul played there on the same, same bill.
Oh wow.
Like, yeah, stakes is higher for De La Soul, and I was just like bowled over, happy to get to see them or whatever. They're just incredible.
Oh man, I love I love both those bands. That's awesome.
That's a double whammy. I was just as excited to see Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul together.
Yeah,
It was like
that's
couldn't
freaking
have worked
great,
out.
man.
It couldn't have worked out better for that one. That's like a real. I look back on that show as like very, very pleasant memories, and happy to have been there. So
Um, well, this is that's great. This is gonna pale in comparison. I think you were actually at this show. There was I hope so. Lookout was huge for a lot of people, and
sure, I was a big Lookout fan. Some of it,
and Epitaph, Fat Wreck, like everybody had their. Mine was Hopeless Records.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
I loved Hopeless Records, and this was a band that broke up a lot because they didn't get along. And went on to be two members of the band were in a very, very successful band. And one of them still is. But I never thought I would get to see 88 Fingers Louie live. And,
oh yeah, sure, of course.
they played at I think Auto Bar in Baltimore, and
that wasn't too long ago, right? I mean, like
yeah.
5 years. Was that 5 years ago? It was before COVID.
Yeah, it was whenever in 2019, I think. Whenever
Yeah.
when the newest album came out. Thanks for being a friend.
Yeah.
Or thank you for being a friend, and they were great. Everybody else on that bill, I was not such a big fan of.
I don't remember who else played, but
there
I
was
do remember
Old Bay Thrashers
Old Bay
and
Thrashers.
Pain, and it was
oh,
fine.
Pain! Wow, that's some wild shit right there. That's some,
yeah, but
probably
they
not
weren't
worth
for
digging
me.
into, but
Yeah. But I was so glad. Like that's what actually 3 out of these are just bands I never thought I was going to get to see, and I did. So 88 Fingers Louie, they were great too. They were. I mean, it was just Dennis and Dan were in the band, and I mean, I'm sure you got to see them full band lineup, and
yeah, I mean, I saw them a couple times. We met them when I was roadieing for Cross My Heart or Liars Academy. We met them back then, and I mean, I always 88 is awesome. So, and that was a great show. It was. Basically, we went out to that show specifically to see Dennis, just to like
like, hey,
I haven't seen you in forever. So
I mean, like I got to see most of the other big Hopeless bands in their prime. So, but that was one that just
other Hopeless bands. I mean, what do we got there? Like,
they had Sam I Am. They had
Sam I Am. I mean, that's like, do we even consider them really a Hopeless band? Sam I Am is like
well, yeah, you're right. But they put out Astray, which is one of my favorite Hopeless records.
Great. Yeah, I saw them every tour. I saw Sam I Am every time they played in Baltimore and in DC. I saw them with Snuff. In like,
oh wow,
in like 90, 89, 90. And then I saw them on the Soar tour, and like every Astray, You Were Freaking Me Out, like every time they play it. I love
You Are Freaking Me Out is my favorite Sam I Am record. That is
we can say it's the best. Nobody from Sam I Am is probably listening in here.
Yeah.
It is absolutely head and shoulders their best record.
Yeah, it's great.
Many great tracks on all their other records.
Yes.
But that record,
they just put out a new EP, and it was pretty good.
I have no doubt. But You Were Freaking Me Out is the slam dunk.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the perfect blend of where they were and where they went, and I mean, it's a great album. It starts off great and just builds up. So
I probably could. I mean, I could probably add seeing them on the You Are Freaking Me Out tour. Could easily be on this list.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these things we're talking about easily could replace other things. It's pretty arbitrary to just pick these things. But,
it is. It is. No, you're absolutely right. All right. Well, let's go on. What's our next one that we are not excited about?
Oh yeah. So I already had let's see. What got here? You know what? I'm gonna take it back to the 80s. And this is just a set. I went and saw Iron Maiden in 1986, and it was the Somewhere in Time tour, so 86, 87. But the opening act was Yngwie Malmsteen. And again, even at this age, which was like, 15 for me or 16,
Yeah.
something like that, just like technical prowess was not enough
Yeah.
to keep my interest. It was just like one 45-minute long guitar solo with that
Yeah.
singer
No,
wailing over
no,
top
thank
of it.
you.
And I was
Iron Maiden, though.
well, that's part of why I choose, because I had to sit through
Yeah.
the Yngwie Malmsteen set to get to the Iron Maiden set. And
Yeah, that's
like
brutal.
the Iron
That's
Maiden set
brutal.
was fucking incredible. But Yngwie Malmsteen, even again, I was like a mulleted, long hair, mulleted 15-year-old metalhead. So, but I was just like, I am not fucking having this, man. This fucking Yngwie was killing me. It was just like fucking destroying me. It was awful. And later year, I found out that at least I think when the Misfits broke up, the original Misfits broke
Yeah.
up, Jerry and Doyle did that band Christ the Conqueror. The singer from Yngwie Malmsteen's band was the singer on that record. They like paid him to like be the studio singer. I was like, well, that record sucks too. So there's
Well, my number three is probably gonna get me run out of Richmond. But I went and saw the Revival tour, and I'll be honest with you, punk guys with acoustic guitar is one of my least favorite genres.
it's not a great unless you're Billy Bragg.
Yeah,
Pretty
and
much not here for it.
I saw Tim Barry on
Uh-huh.
and I mean, the people there loved it, and I just went, this is not, I mean, I hated it. Like, I left,
Not for you.
I think, three songs in. I was just like, nope, I can't do this, and walked
Yeah.
out. So mine is Tim Barry solo is just not for me. So
It couldn't hang with it. I saw Avail a handful of times at shows. I mean, being on the East Coast in the
yeah,
90s or whatever, I saw them and always thought they were fine. I never saw Tim solo, as far as I know, but I am not fond of
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like again, unless you're Billy Bragg, I'm pretty much not here for it. So
yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, certain people transcend, and Billy Bragg transcends anything you throw at him.
I
So
do like. I mean, I like more like I guess like I like some country stuff, so I
but
can hang with like
yeah.
some like outlawy country kind of
We were
like.
going to see Austin Lucas, and I think Austin's fantastic,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
but Tim just not for me. So
Yeah, for sure.
what's your number three you're excited about?
Oh yeah. What I got De La Soul in there and Ramones already, right? So
Yeah,
I'll say Gauze. One of those bands that just like, they only played the United States a few times in the 90s when I didn't have the budget to try to travel to see them in California. And no matter how much anybody tried, they never, I think they played in Europe also at some point. They did a European tour, but also in the 90s. And no matter how hard people would try to get them to come back to the United States, it never ever seemed that it was going to happen, and it never did. They broke up, somewhat recently. So one of my trips to Japan, it just so happened that they were playing when I was going to be there. So I felt like, I mean, one, they're just incredible, and this is like, I mean, 2006.
mm-hmm.
I mean, the dudes in the band were already well into their 50s at this point, and they just obliterate. I mean, they just fucking destroyed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just it was insane. It was just like one of the craziest. I mean, you can talk about bands get hyped or overhyped,
yeah.
or like people just like
When you
chatter
see the
about
Jesus
like,
Lizard, he still rips his shirt off every time. So
but it's like these guys were just like, it
yeah,
was no fucking around. They were
it's
just murdering
Chromex.
it. Just it was like absolutely perfect and crazy. And I never got to see him again. And then they just split. Just finally just split like last year. And I really hold on to the fact that I got to at least catch him. That one time. So
That's yeah. When you said that, it maybe Chromax just played here, and Harley's still playing with his shirt off. So
he earns it. He's
yeah,
doing.
he sure does.
He's doing the pull-ups.
Yeah, he's in better shape than I am.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, my number three is probably going to be one of the more recent artists on here. I saw this band once already by the time I saw them, but it's State Lines is a is now Jade's gone on done Oso Oso, and Oso Oso is huge, and good for him. And I like Jade and I have become good friends, and I'd already seen them once, but when I saw them at Fest, I saw them in 1982, and it's just I remember they had all these signs up for no stage diving and no crowd surfing, and the place was over capacity, and I just remember one of my friends stage diving and then they're crowd surfing, I think is what. And as soon as that happened, just this wave of people went up in the air. And it was one of these, it was a magical show for a band that I really did like, but it was where I fell in love with them. And just seeing that in that environment with these people that, the cool thing about Fest is it's all these bands that don't draw well. I mean, some of the bigger ones do, but the lower levels, but all their fans get together in this one place and they all
they get to
yeah, and just getting to see them in that environment and this band that I was really starting to get into and has blossomed into a really good friendship that's been years and years, but just seeing them there and that place going nuts and watching just like all no crowd surfing and 10 people crowd surfing all around you because they were just so excited it was one of those really magical moments. So
yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's hop on over to number 2.
Oh, this is my second
Yeah,
band. Yeah,
disappointed.
so this one, yeah, disappointing. This is Echo and the Bunnymen.
Oh
And
no.
so I love them,
Yeah.
I had to work an HF festival. So WHFS is a local, or was a local DC kind of indie radio station, and they would do these festivals every year, like indie radio stations do. And this particular year was huge. It was at RFK Stadium, so there was like, I don't even know, I mean, 10,000 people there, maybe more. And that year was like the New York Dolls played, the reunion New York Dolls. The Foo Fighters played. It's a lot of band. Billy Idol played, and he
Yeah.
played a bunch of Generation X songs. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my job, I was working it, so my job was to help push. It was just pusher. You just push the gear up onto the stage, and then roadies assemble it, and then you push the boxes back and just do that or whatever. But when you're not doing that, you can just sit on the side of the stage and look out over 10,000 people and just watch the band play from like, 5 feet away, which is incredible when the band is having a great run or doing awesome things like the New York Dolls were or Billy Idol was, but brutal to the point of like painful embarrassment when it was Echo and the Bunnymen who came out to roaring applause. I mean, everybody was fucking hyped to see them, including me. They started to play Lips Like Sugar, so like arguably maybe one of their most known and popular songs. And as soon as they got to the part where the vocals started, it just all crumbled. I do not know what happened. Again, I don't play an instrument. I couldn't pin it on one member of the band. It just fell apart.
One of those shows where everything falls apart.
And the crowd just fucking lacerated them, booing.
Oh no.
They just walked off the stage. And this is like not 1,000 people. Again, we're talking like 10,000 people. They come back on after 5 minutes, start to play Lips Like Sugar again. It falls apart in the exact same spot. The crowd completely loses its fucking mind at that point, and then they just walk off and never come back.
Oh my God.
Like, I know they've played since then, and the shows have been fine. I mean, they're an amazing band. I have no clue what happened that night. Maybe it's even online somewhere because it was such an epic.
I'll have to look that up.
Epic fucking fail, like a double fail. It would have been bad if they had just walked off and never came back. But the fact that they came back out, tried again, failed, and then walked off, brutal.
That Echo show sounds heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking because I like them so much. It was sad to see it happen. So,
all right. Well, mine is the complete polar opposite of that. It's a band I had no interest in seeing. It was at one of those like end of summer radio shows that were really popular, when Lollapalooza and Warped Tour were taking off. And I don't even know who I was excited to see that day, but we walked by and one of the people I was with really wanted to see Papa Roach.
Oh wow, Papa Roach.
And so in a place where they had multiple stages going on and I could have walked away, we watched maybe 30 minutes of Papa Roach, and it was one of the worst shows I have ever seen in my life. There was a part where he was just smashing himself in the head with the microphone, and it because it was microphone was amplified so much because you're outdoor fest. It was just this loud feedback crack, just constantly booming over the speakers, and I like it stuck with me because of just how bad everything about that shit. Like they sounded terrible. I did not care about the band.
Right. Even if they sounded good, it's still Papa Roach.
Yeah, I was just like, so not only were they bad, they were a band I didn't want to see. And I mean, I've seen some disappointing shows. I've seen I've seen Eve 6 multiple times, and at least they put on a good show. Like they were always with somebody else I wanted to see. Sure. But at least they were good live. So I can sit through a band I don't care about if at least they're engaging, entertaining, but just
sure, of course.
Frat boy banter, terrible, like everything about it was just, I mean, I think he was going by Kobe Dick at that point, and I was just like,
wow.
I was like, what a great name. Like it was awful. Worst show. One of the worst shows I've ever seen. So my number 2, somebody I didn't want to see, but I had to anyway. Papa Roach.
Yeah. Oh man, that's rough for sure. Is it number 2 or number 1 of
number 2 of our favorites?
Okay, number 2. So my number 2 is Pharoah Sanders, who is a jazz player, and he unfortunately just passed away not super long ago. I don't normally make it to a lot of jazz shows, and a lot of the jazz performers that I would want to see, either they just don't make it to this area or they're already deceased. In the case of Pharoah Sanders, he played in DC at a place called the Bohemian Caverns, which was like an old jazz club, and it's like more of like a sit down dinner situation. Like you would have a meal and watch jazz group play. And so that was the situation here. And yeah, I mean, again, rare for me to see a jazz player that I like has played on so many insane records that I love. And he played with John Coltrane. He has an incredible amount of solo records that are amazing. He played with Alice Coltrane, just incredible. And yeah, he was just amazing, and it was just great to see. Yeah, that is absolutely my number 2. I don't even have anything really else to say about it. It was just like a really magical, awesome show. And I was very happy to be there. And I don't go to many jazz shows, so it's like a completely different vibe than any of the punk or hardcore indie shows that I go to. And it was just like a total environment situation where I was just very, very happy.
That sounds. I saw a guy named Pierre Ben Suzanne, who was like a classical guitarist, and it was on my college campus, and I just remember sitting, like it was a seated show, right? Which I didn't do a lot of those, especially in those days, and just watching him, it was magical. Like this guy was, I didn't even really know him before, but I sat down, and when it's a great, sometimes it's just great. Sometimes it's just like, wow, this is incredible. How did I get to see this? So I get it, man. That's a cool show.
Yeah.
All right. So now
number 1 worst.
The worst is what was the worst your biggest regret? Or
oh man. I mean, look, regret is the right word, but just like anger inducing, like just here's the thing. I mean, I'm not trying to drag this on too long. I've seen some unbelievable horseshit in my fucking life. I mean, I have really seen some fucking shit. I saw Striper in 1986. I saw fucking Insane Clown Posse. I saw Blaze Ya Dead Homie. I've seen some like wild
I'm actually jealous of all three of those. Just to say that I like. I mean, I wouldn't have enjoyed it, but I would have enjoyed it as a spectacle. I think.
I saw Cinderella and Night Ranger in like 1985. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
could have if somebody had given me a cool tape, maybe I could have seen Black Flag. Nope, I was just
My first show that I
nope,
was
not at
excited
all. I'm
about
gonna
was
go
Bon
see
Jovi.
Striper.
I get it.
I saw Bon Jovi. I saw Bon Jovi on the Slippery When Wet tour. So
I saw him on the New Jersey tour because I'm a little
yeah,
bit younger than you. But I was geeked out about it because
yeah.
I think I mean, it was, you know,
I
that
was
was my
hyped.
thing.
That motherfucker flew. I would just watch the Living on a Prayer video.
Yeah,
Then I went to the show, and that motherfucker flew out over the crowd like he did in the Living on a Prayer video.
that's insane.
And you know what? I could put that as no. I mean, I could just as easily make that number one of my favorite show. You know, the feeling I had at age 15 or
Yeah,
14 when I saw Bon Jovi fly out over the crowd. I don't know that I've had that feeling many times. You know what I mean?
yeah,
After it, but then you could get into do you really, those
yeah,
feelings that you have when you're like a young, impressionable
yeah,
kid
yeah.
seeing things for the first time? Are you really going to recreate, you know what I
The
mean?
first time yeah, your first, that's it's a novel experience that first
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I missed all those like early straight edge shows in 1988 because I was busy seeing King Diamond and Creator, and I didn't know anything about anything. But then when I got to see Gorilla Biscuits in 2006, it was almost the same. It was like
yeah,
that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Where it was like I had almost that same feeling of like just utter elation at like seeing something in front of me, that made me really happy. So any of those shows could be on my best of list, and 100 could be on my worst list. But I really, really, really fucking hate this band, Black Dice. They
I've never
are.
heard of them.
Oh yeah, they're well. They have two different existences.
Okay,
When I saw them, they were like chaotic screamo,
okay,
and I mean, I would put them in the same category as other bands that I dislike heavily, which is like Lightning Bolt and Airborne Radar.
okay,
Just 90s
yeah,
chaotic
yeah,
kind of stuff. What really put Black Dice over the top for me was that they enjoyed swinging their instruments and purposefully trying to hit and hurt people that were in the crowd.
yeah,
They were not really what you would call a huge band, but they were somewhat hyped. You know what I mean? People legitimately liked them. So I saw them a couple of times, and even though it wasn't like they played and when I saw them, they weren't playing in front of 100 or 200 people. They were playing in front of like 30 or 40 people who were like dedicated and really liked them and were there to see them, and they just took absolute glee apparently in hurting these people. I mean,
yeah.
like really trying, not just like, oh, we're going to go crazy and if somebody gets hit they get hit, more like we're going to do that but we're going to make sure somebody gets hit,
Weaponizing, yeah,
you know. And at the time I remember being, one, I didn't like their music, and but like it really really wore me down that they acted that way, trying to hurt people that were in the crowd. It was really distasteful to me. And you see other bands do it. I mean, Dillinger Escape Plan, if I remember correctly, I think I only ever saw them once, but I think that guy throws his guitar out pretty hard, uh, trying to catch people with it pretty often. But this was before that, and it was really distasteful. I remember being really upset and you know bothered by it. And so yeah, it was a combo of like not only just disliking the music heavily, but the people, but like yeah, their actions just being like terrible. They had a second life. They still exist, except that now they play like incredibly boring, pretentious, like fucking art shit, and don't do that anymore. So then, they're still hated, but just for like another by me, but just for like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So I feel like the people that go to see them nowadays probably wouldn't know or remember, you know what I mean, their
Yeah.
earlier incarnation of trying to hurt people. But I always thought it'd be funny to maybe show up at one of their new boring ass shows and just like smack them in the fucking face,
Just start crouching.
just like, hey, just because just
Come on.
because you're yeah, just because you're over, you know what I mean, your fucking shitty behavior doesn't mean that nobody remembers it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So boy, I really fucking hate that band. And I saw them a couple of times, and they're also a representation of like I had to sit through a lot of that kind of
Yeah.
screamo at the time, and I was really not fond of it. So everything from Drone's Dream and Usurp Synapse to Black Dice to Airborne Radar. I know these are bands that people like, and I feel bad. Like it's almost trolling how much I hate them, but I really, 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 really dislike them. So they get to take the top. They get to
Yeah.
take the top spot for me.
I do realize we never did our number two on bands we loved, I don't think. So we'll have to do
Did we
those.
not? Was it the was Pharaoh Sanders the number two for me? I thought it was.
It was. I didn't do mine.
Oh, you didn't do yours. Oh yeah, jump in. Yeah,
Let
what's
me
your
do
number
that,
two?
and then I'll do my most hated. I screwed
I
up.
was so hate, and my number one most hated was so hated. I had to just jump right over
Yeah.
you to get to
No,
it.
yours is
Yeah,
way
do you
more
too.
intense than
Yeah,
mine.
yeah.
Well, my number two was a cheat anyway. I talked about both these shows earlier, but it was Jawbreaker because I got to see them in Jawbox, and there's more just the Jaw bands because they're so linked in a lot of ways anyway.
Yeah.
But I got to see both of them, and I never thought I would get to see either one of them. So it's more just I've already talked about those shows, but it was amazing getting to see them. They opened with Box. The only thing that was a bummer about seeing Jawbreaker was Prophets of Rage played right before them, and there's literally no way that they were going to match that energy.
Just the energy was tough. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, Prophets of Rage was amazing, but I have seen Jawbreaker many times. They've been great, but I was glad to see the Jaw boxes. But my reviled is so I was a big Hopeless fan. And so when I was in high school, I really loved Digger and Mustard Plug, and they toured together. And I went down to Atlanta to see them. I lived in North Carolina, and they were on a tour package with Ugly Duckling and Long Beach Dub All Stars.
Long Beach Double All Stars, right? That's I know Digger, and
Yeah,
when I worked at the old record store in the '90s, the one I didn't own, we ordered all the Hopeless stuff.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So those bands, but yeah, Long Beach Double. That's related to. There's a Sublime connection.
Sublime, yeah. It was
Right,
Sublime
okay.
after Bradley Noel died, and Ugly Duckling was two white boy rappers.
Always a dicey proposition.
And so I liked Mustard Plug. I liked Digger. I was excited to be there. I was ambivalent towards Sublime. I'm not much of a Sublime fan at all now. But back then I was like, whatever. But Ugly Duckling was just terrible. And I don't generally like white rappers anyway. I mean, there are some that are really good at it, but they were every bad white rapper stereo up there in the 90s. And they went for like 45 minutes. So I was just sitting there like clawing at my skin because I had to sit through so I Digger open, then Ugly Duckling, then Mustard Plug. Uh Thankfully, when Long Beach Dub came on, I was with my sister, and she did not particularly care either. So we did not stay through all of that. So that doesn't push them up as high. But I probably that probably would have been awful too if I had to sit through that. But Ugly
Yeah.
Duckling was God, just that is the worst show I've ever seen. Like it sticks with me. Like I don't remember them. I just remember sitting there going, I can't believe I have to sit through this. And they kept going. Like
I'm
every
gonna look it up. I'm gonna look them up after this. I'm not.
it might not be as bad like as I'm remembering it, but at that time, man, I was just sitting there like every time they started another song, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like again.
I mean, that's the best thing about talking about this kind of stuff is right. None of it might be as bad as we
Yeah.
remember, and the good stuff might not be as good as we remember. You know,
Yeah.
it's just memory. You
Yeah.
know, just like
Yeah.
hitting everybody different. You know, I have
Yeah.
no doubt that there are people that like saw the same Black Dice show as me and would be like, "That was
That's the
the
greatest moment of my life.
best fucking thing I've ever
Yeah.
seen." You know what I mean? Or again, people that saw the Ramones at that show that I saw them at and were just like, "No, DD, fuck this shit."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This shit sucks, and like straight up walk out. So that's the beauty of human memory and different
It is.
ages
Yeah.
and people's opinions about things. So
So what's your number one?
so I swapped it out halfway,
All right.
because I've been thinking about these things only really as like music
Yeah.
or whatever. But this one's a double one. I remember Sam I Am. I saw Sam I Am in Baltimore around 1991, and
Oh
at that,
wow.
and they were incredible. And it was at a really tiny, tiny little house. It wasn't a house show, but it was like it may as well have been a house
Yeah.
show. And but at that show, I met three of my best friends. This guy Greg and Dan and this guy Conan, and I'm still friends with all three of them. And I didn't have a lot of friends at the time, and it was like a really great moment, super organic, where I was there and they were there, and we all just like met and started talking, and immediately the next day started going to shows together, and like just like had like a really great friendship that's like never stopped. So yeah, I was just thinking about this list in more of like a funny music way. But then
Yeah.
when we were
No,
chatting about Sam I Am, I was just like, you know what? Actually, I forgot that I met those dudes at that show, and that might be like my absolute, one of
that's
my favorite things that happened to the show
amazing.
ever.
That I mean, that's the power of like this, especially this scene that we kind of exist in too, right?
Yeah,
It's like the people that love this really love it, and it makes like it's people that care about a lot of the same stuff that we care about, and it's
yeah.
great. What was your other? What was your original number one?
Oh, I think it wasn't number one.
Oh, it was just
I think number one was going to be the Ramones, and I just switched it out.
all right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think somewhere floating in there was probably the Fastbacks, who
Oh man,
I'm just like
great
in.
band.
Oh, you know what? Well, it could have been the Fastbacks, but also Bloodthirsty Butchers.
All
Uh,
right.
two bands that like, because the same thing happened for both of them. I went to a show to see another band, and the Fastbacks just happened to be opening, and I like walked in and was just like, oh, it was the Super Suckers. It was the
All
Super
right.
Suckers and the Fastbacks together in like
Wow.
I don't know what year. And I just walked in and I was like, what the fuck
Yeah, man.
am I
Fastbacks are
seeing?
amazing.
And the Fastbacks just murdered it. I mean, I was like, immediately, I'm gonna buy every single record that this band has ever released, and follow them like a maniac for the rest of my life, which I did and do. And it was just unexpected. It was
Yeah.
unexpected. And I went to a show in Tokyo. I was there to see a Japanese band called Razor's Edge, but it was a kind of a fest thing, not like a big one, but where it was like different venues, different shows, but they were all within a block or so of each other. And I was waiting for Melt Banana to play. Melt Banana was playing, and this band Bloodthirsty Butchers played before them. And I know they were a long-standing band. They
Mhm.
had they had some songs on some comps on K Records in the United States, and they have a split with Rocket from the Crypt on Possed's label, maybe. I
Okay.
think there's a Rocket from the Crypt split, but I wasn't familiar with them at all. And then they played, and I was again just like,
Blown away.
the whole fucking sky opened up, and it was
Yeah.
like, it sounded like half Sonic Youth and half shoegaze, just like
That
insanity.
sounds
I mean,
amazing.
I was like,
I've never listened to them. I'm gonna check them out now though.
it was just like the second they started, I was like, oh, this is my new favorite band. Like, this is
Yeah.
in fucking sane. I cannot believe that I've never heard any of these records. They're insane. And that guy unfortunately passed away like less than a year later after that
Oh
show.
wow.
So then it was like
Glad you got to,
doubly, yeah,
yeah.
retrospectively, I'm like, oh well, I'm glad I walked into that show early, because I never would have seen them otherwise, and then
Yeah.
never would have had a chance. So
Wow. That's man, you got great stories. I love it. Well, I want to do a follow-up sometime.
sorry to fucking I can
Uh
babble about this shit forever.
well, my number one was a British band from like mid 80s or late 80s really, and they broke up, got back together, broke up. Now they'll probably never get back together, but Frankie still plays music. But I got to see Leatherface twice. And man, I just love Leatherface.
Yeah.
And I went and saw him at the fest, and then I saw him again when they did the tour with Yesterday's Ring. And they so infrequently toured the United States, but I got lucky because I got to see him twice, and
Yeah.
I just both shows were so memorable, and I got to meet Frankie at the second one, and he was rolling a handmade cigarette, and I was just like, what a perfect moment! Like that is
Yeah.
exactly what I expected you to do.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's like a whole nother world. Leatherface are one of my favorite bands ever.
Yeah.
And me and my friends went to every single show that was close to us every time they came to the United States. So as soon as they played in Baltimore on the very first tour when the Hot Water Music split came out, and we saw them then. We saw them in Lancaster. We saw them at the Fest that tour, with and without Dickie Hammond, like every single time that we could, because we were collecting those records before they got back together, and we're like, well, this is never. I mean, we will. They were broken up. We will never see them. So when they did get back together, you know, we were like, holy fucking shit, we're going to every fucking show. So we like, I saw them like at the drive-in, opened up for them in Pennsylvania. I was just like, get the fuck off the stage. That's another one where I was just like,
I saw people, the drive-in live and they were not good. So when I saw them,
they weren't even bad. They had a lot of energy. But I was there to see Leatherface.
Yeah,
you know, that's all.
I understand. I understand. What's your number one Leatherface record?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, it's always the battle between Mush and Minx. My cats are named Mush and Minx. That's
nice.
How much I love Leatherface.
Yes.
It's just the eternal battle between those two records, you know.
Mine is a curveball, and then mine is Fill Your Boots.
Oh, Fill Your Boots, incredible. I mean, you know,
that
you could have said anything, and I would never have shit on any choice that you made, because there's no bad ones.
One of my all-time favorites, and just the band I never thought I was gonna get to see live, and they did not fail to impress. I mean, they were just saying they were awesome. So
every show was as good as the show that I'd seen before with them, and every show was like the best thing that I'd ever seen. I could have put I obviously could have put Leatherface, you know, as number one. I mean, it was insane seeing them every time. So.
I mean, there's so many shows that could be on, like you said. But hey, Tony, I really appreciate your time, man. It's been great talking with you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on. Sorry to blather on too much.
No, man, it's been great. It's been great. I really enjoyed it. We'll have to do this again. We'll have to pick something else. Maybe
do it again. Yeah,
we'll circle back and find another topic. But hey, man, good luck with everything. Hope the sales boom keeps going. And next time I'm in Baltimore, I'll stop by. So
all right, do it.
Take it easy.